Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's the SCB Steelers Podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And hello to everybody down there. I hope you are not all floating right now as they're getting just a bit of rain. Very proud to be part of the Variety Sports Network. And, of course, the show originates from the Bradshaw Bourbon Studios. Cheers, everybody out there. Scarps, first time seeing that new intro, and thank you to Aaron for throwing that together again. It is it's one of those run through a wall type intros, and he knows it. I see Aaron's in, Freak's in. Acceptance is the last stage of Steeler grief. Yeah. And you know, it is a birthday week for one of us here, and I would be completely remiss if I didn't mention Scarps turned like 23 this week, and I got to pull up. There was a gift that was sent to Scarps. And I'm going to see if I can't pull this over here because I'm technological.
I feel bad because it's I totally forgot it's in the wash, but
it's in the wash.
There's a Pittsburgh in me. I literally fucking laughed out loud when I saw this shirt. It is beautiful. So thank you, Ben.
Can everybody see that?
No, I can't see anything.
No. Wait,
hold on. How to share your screen, dude?
No, I'm sharing the screen right now. It says I'm sharing the screen, and it's still not sharing the screen.
No one can see it.
That's hold on. Hold on.
Life.
Okay.
There we
go. Yeah.
Really? That's as good as you got it?
Well, yeah, it's been a busy day, man. Yeah.
Ben, explain it.
Explain the shirt.
It's He-Man, and it's the power of
the White
Castle of Castle. What is it? Castle
Grayskull.
Grayskull. That's it.
Yeah.
And instead, it's the power of White Claw, and he's holding a White Claw.
It is. It was. Yes. Speaking of,
Scarpino is our resident White Claw surge drinker.
I can see that shirt being worn at numerous.
It seemed appropriate.
Pittsburgh-themed events.
You know what I was drinking last Thursday? I had a later night. It was really good. It was a good experience. I was drinking some tequila and ginger beer. And
that wouldn't be bad. White tequila?
I don't know. It was I don't know. It was
at that point the color didn't matter.
Yeah, it was good. So it's good to be back though.
Well, it's good to have everybody. There's surprisingly a lot to talk about tonight from the Mike Tomlin contract.
I mean, even in the slow weeks, there's shit to talk about.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's. Yeah. I think if you talk to the old school NFL people who remember, the days of when there were actually off seasons and players didn't have anything to do with the game of football, it's just. The world has changed. And
they have 5 weeks and 6 days.
Yeah.
From today before they have to come back and report for camp.
Yeah.
And this is usually the silly season. This is a time of year when we just hope. We don't read anything about any Steelers player at all.
No. We do not want to hear about any boat trips out on the lake. We don't want to hear about any.
Moelde Moore was on that boat.
Moelde was on that boat.
just saying.
Look up Minnesota Vikings boat trip for anyone wondering. We don't want to see any of that stuff, but that's the dead period. All you can do is hope that none of the silly shit happens. And but minicamp wrapped up today. We'll talk a little bit about some of the goings on there. Najee, who I thought was supposed to speak to the media, apparently didn't have to, and he decided he's going to keep it that way. He didn't want to talk to the media again. So we'll get into that.
Apparently he's going to have to at camp, and so he said, "I'll talk to you then. I'm not doing it now." So all right, well, whatever.
Is he doing himself any favors by not talking?
Not in my opinion, but it's up to him.
Absolutely. If he doesn't have to, according to league rules, then he's not going to. I get it. I mean, we've really not heard from him since the 5th-year option was declined. And my personal feeling is it just makes him look a little shallow, like, hey man, come on. People want to hear what you think. You don't have to go into detail. Share some thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, what can he say though that's not going to make his situation seem worse? Like,
True.
I mean, the best thing he could say is just be like, yeah, I'm going to come out and try my hardest this year. It wasn't my choice. The team decided to do it, and we'll see what happens. But other than that, what else can he really say? I mean, I'm not a PR expert.
No, and that's all I would have suggested. That's all I would have suggested. Just, hey, things didn't go the way I thought they would with my 5th year. Looking forward to the season. Thanks, guys. And there. Then he spoke, and of course somebody will take that and run with it and say, "Oh, yeah, I saw the way he looked into the camera. He's very upset." I mean, that's what we do now. But anyway, I it is what it is. Scarps.
Yeah, I have a problem. I have a problem with the way they've been doing business. And I understand that the COVID protocols and all that stuff really shifted availability. So I want to be cognizant of that, but it just seems that there are a lot of Steelers that don't feel like talking. And I think that's a shitty excuse. You can get out in front of things. You can control the message. You can control the narrative. You can rebuttal the narrative. And for a guy like Najee, who has no problem talking about, how there's dysfunction and there's not enough rules, he sure doesn't want to talk. He wants to talk tough about that shit, but he won't talk about his 5th-year option. But not just that. I know for a fact media availability with this team is not what it once was. Arthur Smith just talked for the 2nd time since he's been here, and he's been here 5 months. Like,
yeah, I think I heard him in March, right?
No. Pickett was traded in March. Smith was hired.
Yeah, I think he was in February.
January.
Was it okay.
Either
way, he's been around long enough.
It was February, because it was after the Super Bowl.
Okay, sorry.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, still, it took them almost 2+ months for Arthur Smith to be introduced.
Right.
And I can't help say this because I do know the guy and I like him, and I think he's, just like Rich Eisen, I think he's cool. Mike Tomlin anymore just seems so annoyed and pissed every time he talks, and he talks the least out of any head coach in the league. And I just feel that the Steelers play this victim card, and it's very annoying and very frustrating. And it's something, I had to deal with.
Cowher, looking back, and I know you guys were some youngsters when that happened, but in the early 2000s, he was a real prick to the media. Because,
yeah.
They had run with the rumor about him and his secretary. Kate Cowher had to call a press conference herself.
Oh man,
and defend her marriage.
You're getting real deep.
And he was obviously fucking annoyed. I mean, obviously, when they asked stupid questions, it was like he was holding everything back inside to go, that's a stupid fucking question. Why are you asking me that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the point I'm making about Tomlin as it relates to him is just that I think these guys get to a certain point and they've seen and heard all this shit, and they're just like, man, why are you asking me that?
Is there a fine line, though? Because I can see the 4 of us also having a conversation about, why don't these guys shut up? They're talking too much.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
No. I mean, Cam Sutton said way too much.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude, I don't know who the fuck he got advice from before. I'm like, really? Really, dude?
Right. Right.
And I was defending the signing all day long. And, I still don't think we have the whole story there, and I don't think we ever will.
Mm-hmm.
But, when somebody asks you about a domestic violence accusation, you don't say, well, it's just more adversity and I'm used to this kind of thing, so I'll handle it the way I always have, and I'll push right through. What? Dude.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. That was
Scarps, do you see that question from Freak?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I've said this on the show before that like there's only 2 people that have been punished for speaking their mind, and one of them was Chooks and he's gone, and the other is Najee and he didn't get his 5th-year option. But as much as he said that, like this is what I don't understand is like it's same with Cam Sutton. Like they get time with these guys. Like they coach them on what to say. Like you get coached on what to say the same way you would get coached on a play. I mean, obviously, it's not the same, but there are similarities. And you don't think in my time there that some guy was like, "Fuck you, Ryan, I don't want to talk to the media." Of course they did. They did it all the time. But I would always, I would always hit them with, "Listen, do it today, and you don't have to do it the rest of OTAs.
Yeah,
do it at minicamp, and you don't have to do it until training camp." Like there was always like this sort of like, it's like you gotta give and take. Like there's a give and take, and the longer you wait to talk about something, the more they're gonna write about you. And now, I mean, it's been 7 years since I've been there. Now every fucking Tom, Dick, and Harry tweets, the Steelers player takes a pee, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry's like, hey, so and so, pissed at Tequila Cowboy, and it's just like, it's just for Najee, Ian, I understand what you're saying, but he, as a leader, as everybody thinks he is, and maybe he thinks he is, he should be embracing that opportunity to tell his side of the story without throwing the team under the bus. He doesn't have to.
Should he have ever been named a captain?
He
was pretty young when he got that title.
I don't know, and I think that they were so desperate.
Pretty young unit, though.
It was, Ben, and I'm not saying, and I'm not even saying it was a bad move. It just in hindsight,
they were so desperate. They were so desperate for leaders. I think they were young.
I think making Mitch a captain was a lot bigger.
Yeah, it should have been Mason.
I mean, that was fucking stupid. Well, I mean, sure. Probably in retrospect, but what Mason did before that, it's like, but I think, I don't know that making a quarterback on that offense who is that insufficient a captain was ever a good idea. I don't care if you're trying to make him be a leader.
I mean, shit,
terrible idea.
At that point, the only team capped was Ben still there when he was a captain, or was that the year after Ben left?
Najee? After Ben left.
Year after. Yeah,
because there was that like hug in Ben's last game that was kind of like the passing of the torch from Ben to Najee after Najee scored that game-winning touchdown. Was that against the Browns in the last game? Yeah. Before the playoffs.
Yes. I believe that. Yeah,
the Browns.
Or no, we went to Baltimore then too, didn't we? Didn't we have to?
It was the last home game. It was the last home game.
Yeah. Again, he's footloose and fancy free now for the next 5 weeks and 6 days. He doesn't have to say anything, and probably won't. And my guess is when he arrives at camp, he probably won't say much there either, although one could suggest maybe getting it out of the way as he moves his PS5 into the room might be a good idea, but he might just wait and do it down on the field during practice one day. I don't know. Ian, what do you think about all this talk about Minkah Fitzpatrick getting back to Minkah ball?
Well, I wore my Minkah Mania shirt tonight for the show. So I love it because we've talked on this show a lot about how Minkah was played dramatically out of position last year. And if they actually play him at his best position, which is free safety, and not try and play him at slot corner or box safety, then he can definitely get back to the player that he was. He's best when he can see things in front of him because his innate instincts to know where a play is going as it develops, and he has the physical ability to get there and make a play, is otherworldly. Like that doesn't come around often, that pairing. Like Troy Polamalu had that he had the ability to see things and understand what was happening and the physical ability with it to get there and make a play. And Minkah has that similar combination. I'm not saying Minkah is Troy. I'm saying he has that combination of skills. The guys like Brian Dawkins and Ed Reed, like those were guys that had that pairing of skills. Some guys have the ability to see things, but not the physical ability to get there. Robert Spillane, for example. Some guys have all the physical ability in the world, but have no idea what's happening. And, they're the guys that look completely lost out there. And you look at their like athletic testing, you're like, this guy tested off the charts, but looks clueless on the field. Devin Bush, for instance. There's when you get that pairing of the two of them, it's unique and special, and you got to put those guys in the best positions to succeed. And I think last year the coaches put him in the positions where they needed an impact player the most, not in the position that matched his skill set to succeed.
Yeah, and Terrell Austin basically said what you just said. We feel good about getting him back to playing where he is best. But they had to play him in other positions because of injuries. And
they didn't have to. They were moving him around early.
Right. They were moving him around, and what they had to do was play him toward the box because of the quality of their other safeties.
Right. Well, you had didn't you have 2 years in a row where his partner back there was hurt, essentially, KZ? And then who the hell was the year before?
The year before was Edmonds.
Okay, yeah, all right. I'm thinking something different. Anyway,
Edmonds
KZ got hurt.
Fine.
KZ got hurt.
Broke his arm.
Yeah,
KZ got hurt, and KZ got suspended. KZ missed some time.
Yeah.
But here's the other side of this that we're not really talking about yet. Yes, Minkah is an elite free safety. He is not an elite box safety. He's not an elite slot corner. He's pretty good in those positions, but he's not elite.
Mm-hmm.
The other half of it is he sets the defense. So when he's back there and he sees things happening before the play, he can make adjustments to the players in front of him if he's playing free safety.
Mm-hmm.
It makes the whole defensive backfield better as a result.
That's a good point.
They all benefit.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is, and I'm not saying we haven't heard from him or of him, but Deshaun Elliott's been really quiet in OTAs, and that's fine. I just, I'm excited to have him. I think he's going to be excellent in that role.
I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be pretty solid. I don't think that he's going to be a stellar player. I'm not excited to have him. I think he's going to be a piece similar to what Edmonds was before him. He's going to be solid, steady. He's going to show up. He's going to have a great attitude. He'll do all the dirty work, but he's not going to be a guy that, is going to shut down a Travis Kelce.
No. And I don't have that expectation of him. I just feel like you said, it might be the first time since Edmonds where we had a guy that was,
Travis Kelce's getting old. And
Travis Swift.
Travis Kelce's getting old, and his soul is being sucked out of his body by Taylor Swift.
It is. And we're getting really, really close to the point where she sends him packing too.
And I absolutely cannot wait.
It's coming, baby.
We need to wait until after December 25th of this year so that I can sell my tickets.
I was just there you go.
A high price.
Ian, smart, very smart.
Smart move. Yeah, whose box does she get, by the way? Because somebody's probably got to get kicked out of there, right? When she comes into Heinz.
She'll be in Sierra's box that everybody will. Oh, that sounds terrible. That sounds terrible. But that everybody will hate Russell Wilson.
This show just went totally triple X.
Yeah, don't listen to me.
Anyway, well, should we get into the Mike Tomlin contract stuff?
Please.
Yes, let's.
Okay.
You all fucking knew this was coming. I don't know what all the hubbub is. I don't. Jesus.
I don't think that's what it is. I think it's just simply the fact that.
Don't tell Steelers Twitter that.
Well, look. Tomlin got a 3-year extension through 2027 now.
It's actually longer than I was expecting. I was expecting 2.
I kind of was as well.
I wasn't, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Usually they redo their contract when there are 2 years left, and they tack 2 more years on. They redid it this time with 1 year left and added 3 years. Okay, so basically they just corrected it. They put it back on the timeline it was on before, so that there wouldn't be any questions about it.
So
it wouldn't be a thing. It wouldn't be a deal where they were going, okay, so are they going to redo your deal again next year?
So look, Scarps, I'm going to throw this to you first. You are Art Rooney too, and you're sitting. I'm setting you up here, buddy. What have you seen from Mike Tomlin that makes me say, you know what? I'm giving this guy another nice, healthy extension. We're going to keep the seat underneath him totally cold.
Okay, so I want to answer this. I want to answer this in 2 ways. I want to answer this based off of experience that I have with those people, and then I'm going to answer it as
fair
devil's advocate. So I look at, if I'm Art, I look at Mike and I say, okay, we have had 3 coaches since 1969.
Yep.
Yes.
I
You should do this in Art's voice, by the way.
Well, I was setting him up for it, and then he didn't do it.
I think Art watches the show.
You're damn right he does. He's watching live right now.
I'm gonna get canceled. Yeah, well, Mike, you've done a pretty good job for us, especially early on, but you haven't done much lately. So
I never noticed that Art kind of sounds like Aaron Rodgers.
I have said this for years now. Why wasn't I at the Jets minicamp this week? I was with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Does he sound like him, or does he sound like Mahomes?
Mahomes.
No, Mahomes is like Kermit.
He's
the
like
Frog.
Kermit the
Hey
Frog.
guys, it's me,
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes.
I'm just really excited. I don't know. That's not that good. Anyway, I'm going to Disneyland. Fuck it. Okay, let's get back to the point here.
Over the rainbow.
So there is a history and nostalgia element to keeping Mike Tomlin.
Yep.
And then there is the fact that he is a great leader of men, and this is going to lead me into my next thing.
Okay.
He's never had a losing season.
Oh boy.
So now away from Art, I completely understand the non-losing season thing, and I am so sick of hearing about it. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That makes all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So the devil's advocate in me is saying that, okay, I understand we've only had 3 coaches since 1969, but you have been 1 and done or worse in 13 of 17 seasons. You have been 1 and done or worse in 11 of the last 13 seasons. You are under 500 in the postseason in your career. You haven't won a playoff game in 7 years. I am not going to give you an extension, and we're going to see how this year plays out.
If I am Mike Tomlin and Art tells me that, I say, okay, fine. And when the season is over, I say, adios. I'm cleaning my office out.
Why?
Because Mike Tomlin has done an outstanding job the last 2 years. I don't know why you guys don't see this. They had a dog shit roster. Terrible. 26 and 28.
But isn't that part of him?
Not part of it?
26th and 28th in scoring. Fucking dog shit. They were horrible. Is he part of putting that team together? Yeah, he is. But I'm sorry. God bless him. Kevin Colbert's last 5 drafts were not good drafts.
And Tomlin wasn't part of that, though.
He was in on it, no question.
But so Omar Khan,
he's been in on the last 2 drafts, and they seem to have pivoted completely. Even their focus, even the direction they're going, the players they're taking. So how much does he really have? Does he have guys in there now going, no, Mike, we really need to invest in the lines?
Ian?
So I think I have a lot of opinions here. I'm going to start with Tomlin, and then I'll go elsewhere.
Okay.
Those teams were dog shit. Sorry, those rosters were terrible. I know that's sacrilege. You can't say that about the Steelers because they can't do anything wrong. Those teams were shit. That was not a talent juggernaut. Sorry to break it to you, Steelers Twitter.
Mike Tomlin's biggest strength is consistency, staying on message, and keeping guys focused when shit hits the fan. The COVID year, when like there was total chaos of us having our bye week switched on a Friday that like we're supposed to play Tennessee, and then all of a sudden they get COVID, and it's like, well, nope, Steelers, we're giving you a bye this week, and then guess what? Like you gotta, switch your later bye and then play the Ravens on a Wednesday, and this other stupid shit. Like Mike Tomlin's biggest strength is, keeping things on message, keeping the routine working. That kind of, it's a cliche, but never get too high, never get too low. Like, the ability to stay consistent and keep his guys believing. Like the low point of last season was losing to Arizona and New England in the same week. And yet he got the team back to go win at Seattle and at Baltimore, even though Baltimore rested some of their starters. Nevertheless, right? But like, that's his call as the head coach, is who's the quarterback.
They should have lost those last 3 games.
Like, and when we looked at the schedule at the beginning of the year, we were like, oh yeah, the Arizona sucks. They should be able to beat New England. It's at home. And then, and the Arizona game was weird. Like, I'm kind of willing to give him a pass for that one because that was the one where not the New England game, but the Arizona game. There was like 3 lightning delays, and Pickett got hurt, and it was just a weird ass game. So, but at their lowest point, they still can like bounce back, and even the year before that, like it was this year too, that they went and they got destroyed in Houston and then came back and beat Baltimore the following week at home. Like, his ability to keep guys focused and to not have them just bottom out, that's an underrated trait. And I think that's important to note, that, you don't get to the playoffs unless you win games in the regular season. And there's only been 1 game in Mike Tomlin's entire tenure where we were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And I think that it was the last game of, I think, 2013.
2012.
Yeah, no,
2012.
Very impressive. Yep.
That we've always been in the hunt to make the playoffs. And yes, the playoff losses are a thing. And I'll talk about that later, because I think Ryan has a point he wants to make. I'm going to let somebody else talk. I have many more points to make. So go ahead, Ryan.
No, we're going to talk about this for a while. I'm going to be healed, and I'm going to go heel tonight.
Full heel.
No.
Steelers Twitter made him mad, so he's got to go heel.
See, fucking, yeah, sometimes Steelers Twitter makes me mad. But Ian, you're not wrong about that. I agree. But what happens when we get to the playoffs? We get fucking embarrassed.
All right.
We get embarrassed. So yeah, that's cool and great that, that we don't go 4-13, wink, wink, because God forbid we went 4-13 and got a franchise quarterback or a fucking generational talent, because I hear that all the time. Because let me tell you something right now, the fact that TJ Watt was still there, are we going to shit on Kevin Colbert for taking TJ Watt? Or are we going to just say that every other GM sucks ass and let him pass, because nobody could ever give Kevin Colbert any credit anymore?
No, that was the one good pick out of that draft class.
All right, here's
Terrell Edmonds.
Now we're talking playoffs though. So here
Terrell
we go.
Edmonds wasn't in that same draft class.
No. All right.
Juju wasn't bad.
Juju wasn't bad. He just didn't have great knees.
Okay. Yeah. So here is my strong take on the playoffs, is that Ben Roethlisberger was actually not a good playoff quarterback.
He wasn't.
And Mark,
he was once in 2005.
Mark, if you let me share my screen here.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
He had a stretch in 2005.
So
I don't disagree with this, though.
This is a lot of information all at once. But if you look at just Ben's passer rating in the playoffs versus in the regular season, his passer rating dropped tremendously every sort of cycle, right? So I broke this down between when he was with Cowher, when it was Tomlin with Arians, 2011 to 2018, which was both Haley and 1 year of Randy Fichtner, and then 2019 to 21, because that was elbow injury and afterwards. But if you look at the bottom, and then I compared that passer rating, like to players' career.
Right.
So, Ben went from Ben basically, if you want to draw a comparison, went from a regular season quarterback where he was more or less the overall equivalent of I'll pick someone. Let's say the equivalent of like Justin Herbert, or no, historically. All right, let's say Ben in the regular season was Matt Ryan, and Ben in the playoffs was Geno Smith. To put it in like modern terms, like Matt Ryan, not being clutch aside, was a very good, competent quarterback.
He was league MVP 1 year.
Yeah, exactly. Geno Smith, other than last year, was like got benched multiple times and couldn't find a starting job. So Ben in the playoffs has not been good. And, just like looking at the changes in passer rating, the changes in statistics, his touchdowns per game, or his interceptions per game went up, his sacks per game went up. And granted, you're playing better teams in the playoffs, but his completion percentage went down. So
everybody's stats go down a little bit. Quarterbacks, they all go down a little bit, but Ben's, it was dramatic.
It was dramatic. Yeah.
Aside from 2005, which is odd because, 2004, he was pretty good too until the AFC Championship game.
Right.
But,
No,
2004 he was
against the Jets.
He was terrible against the Jets.
He was terrible against the Jets.
Interceptions.
Yeah, he was terrible against the Jets, but
the Pats he sucked too.
But so here's the point though, right?
That's right. I'm sorry. I'm mixing up my years.
Yeah. The one line I want you to look at though is the attempts per game, right? So here, when in the first half of Ben's career, when he had a good running game and a good defense and wasn't asked to be the leader of the team that carried them in the playoffs, he had a lot of success in the playoffs. He was 10-3 from 2004 to 2010 in the playoffs. After that, he was 3-7 in the playoffs. You see his attempts per game jump from 25 in the Cowher era to 30, 31-ish with Tomlin and Arians to then like 37, 38 later in his career. So when Ben was asked to like be the leader of the team and be the guy that carried them when the defense wasn't as good, he wasn't able to do it in the playoffs. He could do it in the regular season, and some of the playoff games are weird too, right? So I think I don't want to put it all on Ben's shoulders because it's a team effort, right? Winning and losing is not a quarterback statistic; it's a team effort. But look at Mike Tomlin's records in playoff games. In games where we won the turnover margin, he's 7-1. In games where it's even or we lose the turnover margin, he's 1-9.
Weren't a lot of his numbers too, after they were already down?
Yeah.
And I think
some of that's on the offense that Ben threw 4 interceptions against the Browns. Yes, he threw 4 touchdowns, but he also threw 4 picks. Some of that's on the defense of getting turnovers, getting stops, things like that too. That it's a team effort, but I think Ben, our Ben, not Roethlisberger, but our Ben made a very good point in the chat this week that the coaches Tomlin didn't tell Marquise Pouncey to snap the ball over Ben's head. Tomlin didn't tell Ben to go out and throw 2 interceptions to the Jaguars in the first quarter. That it's when Tomlin didn't tell Ben to go out in the Super Bowl against the Packers and spot them a 21-point lead, one which was almost a pick 6. It's like he threw 2 picks in that first quarter, and we still almost came back and won that game. So like you can coach players up to a point, but the players still have to go out and execute, right? And there's been a slew of bad luck with injuries. Like Le'Veon Bell only played 2 playoff games in his career because of injuries.
Yep.
If Antonio Brown doesn't get decapitated by Vontaze Burfict, do we go out and win that game in Denver and then go on a run there? Things might look differently.
We were gonna fucking win that game, and I will fucking stand by that. But that's fine.
The final point I want to make is, and I've talked for a long time, but the final point I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the coaches that have won a Super Bowl, only 2 of them have losing records in the playoffs. Tomlin. Do you know who the other one is?
Sean Payton.
Harbaugh. No, it's Tony Dungy.
Oh, jeez.
And Tomlin and Tony Dungy's careers are very similar. They've had very good regular seasons, but haven't delivered in the playoffs. So, I mean, and Tomlin was, Tony Dungy's assistant. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But I'm just saying, like, Tony Dungy is remembered as a very good coach for the most part. But
Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer. Yeah. And Tomlin's been to more Super Bowls than Dungy went to.
Right.
Or no, sorry, the same. He's been
Ben.
the same. Sorry. He's been to 2. Dungy went to 2, Tomlin went to 2. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
The only parallel I'm really drawing here again goes back to Cowher, and I think that Bill Cowher benefited by the fact that the AFC was dog shit for most of the 90s. It was Pittsburgh and Buffalo, and that was pretty much it. Everybody else pretty much stunk. And then in the late 90s, early 2000s, they started to catch up, and then the AFC got good. Like now, it's AFC is a fucking gauntlet.
Well, when Brady showed up, I mean, let's be honest,
that was part of it, but there were a lot of guys. Anyway, I digress. Late in Bill Cowher's career, he changed. He started taking more input in from his assistants. He let his players talk him to doing more things. They got into the playoffs in 2005, and they were a run-heavy team. And Cowher let them run some plays where they were throwing the ball to set up the run as opposed to running the ball to set up the pass. And it was working. They won a fucking Super Bowl because of it. And I think Tomlin will continue to evolve. I don't think he gives a shit about his record of non-losing fucking seasons.
No, I'm sure he does.
I think he'd almost like to have a losing season so people would stop fucking talking about it and it wouldn't be a thing anymore. I really strongly believe the reason they gave him a 3-year contract was to avoid these conversations. He gets really annoyed talking about his contract. The first thing he said was, they asked him how it felt. Did it feel really good to get that contract? And he's like, it felt good because I'm not going to get questions about my contract.
Yeah, and and he said that to Brooke Pryor from ESPN, and he's the one who walked out of the Buffalo press conference when she asked.
Right.
And I just sit there and think, like, is it really that hard to not like be an asshole about it? Like, I just like, I don't know. That really, really annoys me. And I don't know. That just gets to me a little bit because, at other times, Mike will talk about how he's just so blessed to be there, or he just loves football or whatever. Like, can maybe every once in a while you just answer the question and not sound like a total dick? Like, I just, even when I worked there, I hated that shit. And he talks the least out of any head coach.
Yeah.
And every time he talks, he just sounds like he's annoyed, and he always gives you some word salad or some bullshit. And it's like, that's not really who he is. And like, I hate that he never sort of like ever just lets that guard down. But getting back to Ian's point, I'm not going to say that Ben was the best playoff quarterback ever, but like leading up to Super Bowl 40, he was a fucking killer in those 3 games.
Yep.
And then,
then,
as Casey's going to touch on this a little bit later, he had arguably the greatest throw in Super Bowl history to win Mike Tomlin his only Super Bowl in 43. And I would say that Ben's 2008 year overall was not good, and they had arguably the greatest defense, not only in team history, but maybe top 10 in NFL history. That's how good they were. Ian, you're not wrong, though. Ben absolutely made some shitty plays in the playoffs. He was a totally different quarterback. There's no question. But I keep going back to that.
Doesn't that go back to preparation?
Well, okay. And
I was talking to you guys about this week, and I'm like, in those big moments, I always question his leadership because it was like he was the guy who wasn't really prepared. He was going out there he knew that he could just show up and ball out. And because he always had, right?
Yeah.
But you shouldn't go into a fucking NFL playoff game that way. Like you hear Tom Brady talk about it a couple of weeks ago. And he's talking to a bunch of kids and he goes, every day was a big day for me. Every day.
He's to Brady.
He's like, I was competitive. Yeah. I was competitive in the preseason. I was competitive in practice. Games were big things. And then when it got to the Super Bowl, it was just another game.
Yeah. And that, so, when Emmanuel Sanders went to Denver and talked about how Ben and Peyton were different and all the Steelers fans got all pissed off about it. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And it's just like, why is that a bad thing? Because we love the Ben that just ad-libbed and winged it and fucking did it. But like, if Ben tried a little bit harder, would they have been a little bit better? Maybe would they have won more? I don't know, but that's just not who. That's just not who Ben was.
He had to find a balance. He had to find a balance between being that guy who could just go out there and play backyard ball, do some off-script things that nobody could see or predict was coming. And being that guy who's a little bit more disciplined,
so
took better care of his body, ate better.
Let me. I probably said this before on the show, but living where I do near Western Michigan University, I get to know people and coaches and former players up there. One guy was a quarterback who played with the Colts when Peyton Manning was there, and Peyton Manning used to set up a ladder back behind, so he'd put a camera on top of it and it would film every one of his drops. Okay. Didn't matter if it was 3-step, 5-step, 7, it would film every one. He'd go back and he'd check his drops every time, and he would get pissed off if even one step was out of rhythm, out of place.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up, would Ben have ever done that?
No.
Fuck no.
No. No, that's not a rip on Ben. I love Ben.
Well,
but he's a different type of guy, a different type of player.
What I'm saying is this straight up, okay? The guy was so good, he could just show up to an NFL game, and fucking
that's saying
ball out, at that level. Yeah, it is saying something. It's amazing that he can do that. But the other point, and I don't know if it was you or Ryan who made it, if he had just applied himself a little bit more, how much better would he have been? Would he have been a fucking
exactly
Tom
what I'm
Brady,
getting at.
Peyton Manning type?
Take even a little bit of that.
Can I make one other point? Just being a devil's advocate here too.
Of course.
All right. So we're talking about Ben's greatest runs in the playoffs, and not to take away from anything that Roethlisberger did, but in the beginning half of his career, so the 3 Super Bowl runs, the Seattle, beating Seattle in Super Bowl 40, beating Arizona in 43, and then losing to the Packers in 45. In those Super Bowl runs, there were 4 or 5 games, depending on how you want to count Randall L's touchdown, that we scored I'll call it non-traditional touchdown, whether it was a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown. So Randall L against Seattle.
That team
Santonio
loved
Holmes
that shit. Remember that?
Yeah, they did. Santonio Holmes returned a punt for a touchdown against the Chargers. Troy's pick 6 against the Ravens. Harrison's pick 6 against the Cardinals. And then I think Willie Gay returned a fumble against the Jets for a touchdown too, or something like that.
Didn't Holmes have a punt return against the Ravens too, or am I stupid?
He had a long touchdown against the Ravens.
That's it. My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It was like a broken play, and Ben just threw it up. And
and to me, that's the ultimate team football.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
It is. And like I said,
fantastic.
winning and losing is a team statistic. It's not a quarterback statistic. And Ben was very good in those games. Don't get me wrong. But we're talking about like Ben's greatest runs, and all those games also included touchdowns from other phases of the game.
Yes, absolutely.
And so
I mean, those were great defenses, though.
Those were great fucking defenses.
So
I mean,
I want to get back to the Tomlin thing, but I want to finish. I want to finish with this with Ben. Is that Ben's best statistical years came when we didn't have a defense, because we knew, and I think I've said this on the show, but I remember what
I think his best statistical year was 2007.
No.
Well, there's
36 touchdowns.
No, he had 32.
Finish your thought, and then
But he also had like 21 or 22 picks. So
no, he had 32 and 11 in 2007. But from
that's a pretty fucking good year.
From 2014 to 2018, the dude was like really solid. Like anyway, they didn't have defenses then. But during those years, and Todd Haley has talked about this publicly, and I'll say it now, Todd Haley would go to Mike Tomlin and say, how many points do we need to score this week realistically? And Mike might be like, we need 28 at least. And then Todd would be like, okay, we got you. Now, fucking imagine that right now, or the last couple years, where Matt Canada goes to Mike Tomlin and says, Mike, how many points do you need this week? And Mike says, if you could get me 13, we'll see what happens. And fucking Kenny Pickett with his Aunt Kelly on Twitter saying, don't talk about my nephew that way, or whoever there's a Pickett family member somewhere out there. Anyway, so getting back to final point about Ben is that, he wasn't the best in the playoffs, no doubt, but I can't put that on him. Getting back to Tomlin.
Yes.
Tomlin's teams are absolutely unprepared for these postseason games. It's not even close. So getting back to Ian saying, oh, well, they don't give up during the regular season. That's fine and dandy. They haven't scored a first quarter point in the past 5 playoff games.
Dude, the past 5 playoff games, they've given up defensive scores when the offense is on the fucking field. I mean, they're awful.
Yeah. So they're outscored 66-0 in the first quarter, right? 66-0 in the first quarter. I think at halftime, the past 5 playoff games, I think it's 140 to like 27. It's outrageous.
Terrible.
They're fucking done. They're done. I don't care if you blame Kevin Colbert. I don't care if you blame Ben Roethlisberger. At the end of the day, the fucking head coach matters. And I don't care. Yeah. I do not care how many players want to play for him, and that he would get a job in 5 minutes somewhere else.
Hear that all the time.
Because he hasn't done shit outside the regular season since, and I don't want to steal Casey's thunder, but but he hasn't done it since 2016.
What does change for the sake of change accomplish, though? Let's just change it. Let's just change it because we're not winning playoff games. Because I'm going to point back at the last 2 seasons. The guy did an outstanding job.
Well, isn't doing the same thing over and over insanity?
He did an outstanding job.
So we're gonna change it up and go. We're gonna go to some assistant that we don't know. He might be a good guy, might not. You never know. Let's give it a shot. Let's change it up and see what happens. That's what we're doing. Because that's a very Cleveland Browns thing to do.
Okay.
They did it for decades.
He did an outstanding job because he went 19-15 and what 80% of the games
with those
were 1
fucking
scores
rosters.
And he won.
With those rosters scoring 18 points a fucking game.
And Ben,
and they wouldn't have scored that many points if they didn't get points from their defense.
That's great. But again, I think the discussion is what the fuck's the problem in the postseason?
They are the luckiest.
You guys are making that
I have ever seen in my life.
I'm saying that team never could have contended for the playoffs at all.
And every time
they were
I
fucking dog shit.
And every time I tweet that they're not going to win, eventually they're not going to win all these one-score games. And every Steelers fanboy tells me,
we talk law of averages all the time.
This is just what Mike Tomlin does. Well, guess what?
I'm just starting to believe it. I'm just like, well, what the fuck? I'm just like you. I'm like, it's going to return to the mean at some point.
Yes,
it has to return to the mean.
Cool. We can keep going 9-8 and 10-7 with a bunch of one score victories and get fucking smacked in the playoffs.
I don't think it's gonna be that bad this year. Knock on wood, we'll see. But I think the last half of the season is gonna be fucking brutal.
Because you know what? I can't wait until 2027 when Mike Tomlin gets yet another extension for not winning a playoff game, and then TJ Watt has maybe 15 more minutes left in him, and he has 0 playoff wins.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask. Okay,
I'm going full asshole tonight, and I don't even care.
Scarps, whatever. What happens if we're in the same pattern? We're 9-8, or we're 10-7. We squeeze in the postseason. We get pounded in the first round. I mean, how long are we going to keep doing this?
We've got a 1-year window.
I'll go last.
Right. We've got a 1-year shot here with Russell Wilson on a cheap ass contract, and after that, we have no idea what's going to happen at quarterback.
This is a wild card year.
Yeah, this is the year where they kind of need to take a run at it, and I think they feel that way too.
Mm-hmm.
That they kind of need to take a run at it this year because this is not a great quarterback draft class coming out.
Nope.
And, Wilson's here for a year. Fields is here for a year. They could re-sign either one of them, maybe, but there's no guarantee either way. So, they've got a guy who's actually quite experienced and talented and has that clutch gene at quarterback. And Russell. Well, here's the thing, though.
Oh, Russell
right?
Wilson.
Yeah, Russell Wilson's. We talked about Ben's playoff regression going from Matt Ryan to Geno Smith, right? Russell Wilson, I ran the same numbers. Russell Wilson's playoff regression is Deshaun Watson to Phillip Rivers, basically. And Phillip Rivers not being clutch aside, just the whole body of work was quite a good quarterback. And Russell Wilson in Denver was basically Matthew Stafford as in his career. His quarterback rating was 91, which is basically what Stafford's has been for his career. Mm-hmm. And considering what we've had the last few years, I would easily take a guy who performs like Matthew Stafford this year. And that gives you a chance to win in the playoffs. He knows how to get it done. And I think you've seen that from the players too, right? The players have talked about the difference in leadership with Russell Wilson and how he wants guys to do things a certain way and make sure they get it right. And it's not that sort of lackadaisical approach that they had in the past.
We talked a little bit about the preparation thing. The fact that outscored 66-0, whatever, in the first quarter of the playoffs last game. Is it too easy to go back to say 08, and then Super Bowl 45? Is it too easy to just say the defense, the leaders, the veterans, they made sure those teams didn't walk into those situations? Granted, they dropped way behind in the first quarter of Super Bowl 45, but you see my point. Because does this team have those type of guys?
I fucking hope so now.
Well,
damn right.
So I do want to say this, and regardless of what what you think about the guy, that was Aaron Rodgers' fucking legacy game against us in Super Bowl 45.
Oh, yeah.
That
Couldn't
guy.
have played better.
I mean, Ryan Clark
and let's give what's his nuts, their head coach Mike
McCarthy.
Some credit as well, because he kept calling plays from formations that would draw Troy I'm sorry, not draw him up close to the line of scrimmage, but push him back as a 2-deep safety where he was less effective. And they kept Polamalu out of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is that Mike McCarthy, that guy's wait a minute, hold on. He's pretty much very similar to Mike Tomlin, except Mike McCarthy is just a fucking stupid buffoon, right? But Mike Tomlin's the greatest fucking thing ever. I don't understand it. Anyway, so let me get back to this whole preparation thing. Besides that Aaron Rodgers game, yes, Mike Tomlin has been gifted with a franchise quarterback and a lot of veteran defensive leaders. And for as many people that say, oh, everybody wants to play for Mike Tomlin, they don't quit on Mike Tomlin. That is all fine and good, but what do you got to show for it? And I want to say this. I'm looking at the camera. I love Mike. I love Mike. I think Mike's a great dude. I worked with him daily. He was my number one reference when I left there, and was one of my number one references. Him and Colbert throughout my career. They're still on my reference list. Maybe not so much Tomlin when he watches the show, but I was a fan long before I worked there, and will be long after.
Yes.
And enough is enough. I mean, shit, they haven't done anything. And yet I'm constantly patronized by the national talking heads that tell me, oh, well, the New York Jets or the Las Vegas Raiders, they've been so shitty, they've moved multiple times. But the point is, as Mike Tomlin would say, we do not care.
2004, Bill Cowher had just gone 6-10.
Yep.
They were fucking awful. 2 years before that, they were in the AFC Championship.
03, but yes, I'm with you.
No, 2004, March of 2004. They had just gone 6-10.
Yes. Okay, my bad. I got you.
And
shut the fuck up, Scarps.
Steelers fans were all going, what the fuck? This guy, he's lost.
Yeah, run him out.
3 home AFC Championship games. Can't win the big one. Just never going to be Noel. Let's get rid of him. Steelers said, whatever. Dan extended him 2 more years. He had 2 years left on his deal. He gave him 2 more years. Fans were up in arms. Oh, my God, I can't believe, blah, 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 blah. 2 years later, we're in Super Bowl. There are parallels here, gentlemen. There are parallels. They had just drafted Troy Polamalu. That year, they drafted Ben Roethlisberger.
So where do you
I'm not
see
saying
a
we just
Polamalu
drafted
and
Ben
Roethlisberger on this roster?
I'm not saying that. But I'm saying these last couple of drafts have been pretty fucking good. I don't see this team having a quarterback yet. I still think they're one more good draft away at least. And even then, I don't know if they've got the quarterback. And you got to have the quarterback. If you want to win championships, you got to have the quarterback.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
The days of being able to win a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson are gone. Trent Dilfer, gone.
Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson.
He did, but it was a DB's coach.
I know.
That's funny.
I'm just saying.
It's funny. Mike Tomlin's first ring, thanks to Brad Johnson. That defense was pretty fucking good in Tampa too.
And I guess the other thing, thinking about recent history, right? In the present, because we've talked a lot about Tomlin's tenures his whole career. Is it? Would you rather have a coach who takes a very shitty roster and a team that can't score on offense and carries them to a mediocre season? I guess I'm saying, is it a better coaching job to carry a team like that to a mediocre season like Tomlin has done, or like, say, a Sean McDermott in Buffalo who has a franchise quarterback and has kind of run the table in the division the last couple of years and got to the playoffs, but hasn't carried it through, hasn't got to a Super Bowl? Like to Philly. Me, I would be much more frustrated with the Bills situation of, like, we have, one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Right.
Why haven't we broken through and got to a Super Bowl? Joe Burrow got to a Super Bowl. I mean, yes, Mahomes is a beast. Mahomes is a monster. You gotta break through that hurdle. But Burrow did it in Cincinnati, so like, why can't Josh Allen do it? I'd be asking those questions if I was in Buffalo. That I think Tomlin's coaching job with an incredibly mediocre roster, one Hall of Famer in Watt, a possible Hall of Famer in Minkah, a borderline Hall of Famer in Cam.
Right. You got three guys that are making a lot of money on defense, and you got nobody on offense. And and hopefully the guys that they've drafted, they brought in this year will be those players. There's a picture taken late last week of Broderick Jones picking up Freiermuth like he's a baby. I was just like, holy shit. I mean, I knew this kid was huge, but my God.
Well, yeah, you're right, Ben. I'm hoping that we are paying Broderick Jones, Troy Fonta. I hope.
Yeah, I hope we're paying him big money, and that it's all great, and that our offensive line is the strength of the team for decades to come, and that or a decade to come. But we'll see. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but yeah, basically, there's this. Okay, the contracts right now reflect the experience level on the Steelers. You got a young offense. It's
they
Pickett was gone.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't?
They 1,000% picked Arthur Smith in February.
Okay.
They
Arthur
thought,
Smith. Whatever.
Yeah. They thought
I think they did that
he was going to they were trying to revive Kenny Pickett's career. And instead of competing, he said, please trade me to Philadelphia so I can decide between Pat and Gino's cheesesteaks or Patty Dinnick's in the terminal building. I hope Pickett's aunt's watching this.
Well, chances are one of his relatives are watching because they were all on Twitter this week.
I don't know if it's his aunt. It's some Kelly
I don't
account.
Know.
It's his Aunt Kelly, I think.
Family.
Anyway,
personally, that's not how it went down.
And I'll loop up this point and tie it up, and we'll call it. But there's a lot of experience on defense. There's not a lot of experience yet on offense. This was a very shitty offensive unit the last couple of years. It was pretty bad the year before that. Let's be honest. Might have been just as bad, except they had Ben who could just pull shit out of his ass. So, it's really hard to win with that kind of a roster. Okay. That was really the point I'm trying to make. It is all very one-sided. All the accomplishment is on one side of the ball. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. But again, it comes back to bad drafting because we took a bunch of skill position players in those drafts. Just none of them worked out.
Well, speaking of skill position, they were talking this week about one of the guys that's looked the best during the mini camp, and I always throw in an asterisk when we talk about mini camp because it's
football and shorts. We're really going to do this.
No, and to Claude's point, they still need a number 2 wide receiver. Kelvin Austin III has looked fantastic during camp, but again, I that's a grain of salt to me. The guy's still
Justin Brown looked fantastic.
Yeah, I know it, and I fans just get so enamored with these things. They go to training camp like, oh my God, he's gonna be the guy, and we heard the same thing about the Chris Rainey's, the Dree Archers, all this stuff before. I mean, look, God bless him. I hope Kelvin Austin III turns out to be an absolute superstar. Don't get me wrong, but
an absolute stud wide receiver out of the slot.
I'm going to slow down a little on that. But yeah, they do need to draw attention to that. I will say this too. Pat Meyer this week did say that in a conversation he had with Troy Fatanu that Troy told him he was actually more comfortable on the right side. This was in the pre-draft stuff, and so maybe that's another reason why he has seen most of his time over there.
Utanu.
Yeah, I don't. This whole thing with Dan Moore being the guy at left tackle still, it's beyond me. I don't get it.
Well, that'll change. That'll change.
I think it will, but why not just change it now?
I agree with you. Why not just face reality and
I mean, and I'm not. Dan Moore has been.
Let's trade Dan Moore for a 7th round pick and move on.
Exactly. I'm okay with that. You know, we've got some other depth pieces.
I've talked to a couple of guys who think Dan Moore's going to have a market next year when he's a free agent.
Fucking shoot some money.
I think he will, strictly because of his experience and his age.
Right.
But, you know, when you say have a market, you know, what does that mean? Does that mean?
That means he'll get a multi-year deal someplace for real money. Will it be top tackle money? Of course not.
My God, I mean.
But, real money is shit, man. I mean.
And speaking of real money, and this is something that we talked about right before the show, Trevor Lawrence got a monster deal today. And a lot of people are just losing their minds over how much quarterbacks are making. And
that's the rate now. 50 mil is the rate.
What the market is setting.
Wow. I remember on this show when we talked about Derek Carr setting the market, he was the highest paid quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't doing video then, but he was the highest paid quarterback in the league at that point. And there were other guys that got deals the same year and they surpassed him, but he was making $25 a year from the Raiders. And there was a guy who's not on the show anymore that Ian really liked hanging out with, and he tried to.
Never argued.
He tried to justify the contract to me and I was like, "Are you fucking high, Derek Carr, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL? What the hell are you smoking?" Well, he did this and this and that, and he fucking sucks, man. He's not even a top 15 guy. Well, yeah, he is. No, he's not. No, he's not.
Well,
all I'm trying to make there is this, okay? You can get guys that are the middle of the pack guys, and I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence is. He's not. I think he's a top 10 guy. Middle of the pack guys can get those contracts because that is the rate now for quarterbacks.
It is.
That's the fucking rate. And on top of that, you got agents that go, okay, this guy's super talented. You know that. Look at his age. Look at how young he is. What is he going to be doing for you in 3 years? I'll give him to you for this rate now. And in 3 years, you're going to be going, that's a bargain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's the agent's job, is to sell that.
You know what's crazy, though? Lawrence got $50 million a year.
55.
He is. Yeah. Wait, was it 55?
It was 55.
55.
Same as Burrow. 5 for 55.
I haven't seen the structure yet, so it could be bullshit. Like there could be heavy years and a lot of trickery.
Trickeration. Regardless, they're paying him $55 million a year in some capacity.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With 142 mil guaranteed. True guarantee, 142 million.
Here is a check for 142.
No, they don't have to give him that, but they have they do have to put the fucking money in escrow. Anything above 3 million, they got to put in escrow.
Yeah. Well,
it's a stupid rule, by the way.
Escrow, I'll take it.
If I could, Ben.
And that actually is the escrow point that Ben's making is something that's kind of held the Steelers back on some of this before. Mm-hmm. That, the Steelers.
It's a convenient excuse.
But also, like the Jags owner, Shad Khan, has a fuckload of money and owns a soccer team over in England and all this other shit.
Mm-hmm.
So putting $150 million in escrow is like nothing to him. Like, oh yeah, I'll just put it in the bank. It'll just sit there or whatever. But for the Rooneys, if you look up valuations of team owners, the Steelers owners are usually toward the bottom of the league. So putting that much money in escrow is not something that the Steelers can do easily.
Can you, Ian or Ben, just explain kind of explain what that means when you say if it's over 3 million, it has to go in escrow?
I'll let Ben do that. I've had some beverages tonight.
Long and the short of it is this: the guaranteed money, day of signing, the team has to prove that they can pay out the guarantee, anything over $3 million. The league did this on purpose to limit the amount of guaranteed money they would have to put up when they signed a player. Everybody wants to think that the NFLPA did it to make the league prove that they could pay it. Well, the fucking NFLPA knows the league can pay it.
Mm-hmm.
The owners did that on purpose to be able to say, well, I got to put all that money in escrow. I don't have that much cash right now. Blah blah blah. So let's go down to $80 million. It makes it easier to negotiate. Okay.
Yeah.
So anything over $3 million, you got to throw into an escrow account. I think as long as you can control the money, before it's actually paid out, you can make interest on that money. You follow me? You actually control it. You control the money. You make interest on it. It's all well and good. But you've got to pre-fund that full amount, anything over $3 million.
Okay. All right.
Okay. The Steelers not being able to put that much money into escrow is bullshit. Because if the Steelers don't have the cash collectively, granted, the Rooney's only own 30% of the team, 33%. But if they didn't have the cash laying around, they can borrow it at close to 0%. They'd make more money investing that money than they were paying in interest. So I don't buy the excuse that they can't afford to set that cash aside. Because it's bullshit. Trickeration.
All right. Good stuff tonight, guys. Let's get to Mr. Casey Kasem, who, of course, was not here last week, but we know he's going to make up for it tonight.
Oh, boy. Casey's Coast to Coast, American Top Party. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the week that was June 13th, 1987. Our favorite correspondent, Ryan, is back with us again this week, and he writes, Dear Casey, turn me on, dead man. Casey, turn me on, dead man is a phrase that some say is heard when the number 9 loop in the Beatles song Revolution 9 is played backward. In 1972, a listener called WKNR disc jockey Russ Gibb to claim that the phrase was evidence that Paul McCartney was dead. However, John Lennon, the song's writer, denied the connection multiple times, saying the song was inspired by a drawing that his son made. Casey, what most don't know is that the drawing included the numbers 9 and 8 and the words, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. Casey?
What a long way to go.
Casey, I'm sure you've heard by now that the Steelers extended head coach Mike Tomlin, to a 3-year contract extension that keeps him with the Steelers through the 2027 season. Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game since Barack Obama was in the White House. But he absolutely deserves this extension. There's a decent chance Joe Biden will serve consecutive terms, or Donald Trump will serve 2 separate terms before the Steelers win another playoff game. But hey, the players love to play for him, and he'd get a job anywhere else in 5 minutes. Let's get back to Jeff Fisher, or as I like to call him, Mr. 8 and 8. Every August 8th, we honor Jeff Fisher, and on this September 9th, we will honor Mr. 9 and 8, Mike Tomlin. Casey, when I was taking a shower the other day, I got this idea. Are Mike Tomlin and Jeff Fisher that much different? I don't like to get too many crazy ideas in the shower, Casey, because the last time I did, I almost ended up like David Carradine. Patience, young grasshopper. Look it up.
Look it up, kids.
Mark is apparently the only one who got that joke, but he loves it.
For those out there, David Carradine died by death by asphyxiation. R.I.P. Mike Tomlin and Jeff Fisher are a lot closer than you think. They both have 173 regular season wins. They're both under 500 in the postseason. They've both gone 7 seasons without winning a playoff game. They both lost the Super Bowl. If not for a shoestring tackle at the goal line in Super Bowl 34, Jeff Fisher might have a Super Bowl victory. If it weren't for arguably the greatest defensive play in Super Bowl history and the greatest throw in Super Bowl history, in Super Bowl 43, Mike Tomlin might not have a Super Bowl. Hold on a second. Jeff Fisher lost Super Bowl 34 to Dick Vermeil, who employed Mike Martz. Mike Martz worked for Rod Marinelli. Rod Marinelli and Mike Tomlin worked together under John Gruden in Tampa Bay. John Gruden employed Sean McVay, who took over the Rams job when Jeff Fisher was fired. Casey, it's official. I'm in too deep. Well, Ryan, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and keep your Dow tune right where it is. Now, on with the countdown. Up 2 spots this week to number 6. Here's Genesis with In Too Deep.
Is that 6 degrees of Jeff Fisher?
It's all true, by the way.
It is. Can't argue it.
It's like the It's Always Sunny meme with the guy with the strings on the wall, and he's like,
yeah,
connects to this, it connects to that.
Right.
Pepe Silva.
And go ahead, kids. Go ahead. Google David Carradine, and
but do it from don't do it from your work computer. Make
right.
sure you do it on your personal
do it from home or your cell phone. Yeah. 2 things real quick. Claude mentioned Jerry West, the logo of the NBA. Obviously, we're not an NBA podcast, but yeah, kudos to him. The guy was a legend. And also another guy that passed away this week is a guy named Howard Fineman, political analyst on MSNBC. He was a big Steelers fan. Had a chance to talk to him a couple different times, just in passing on the Twitter and stuff. And really, really, really smart guy, and very, very sad. So thoughts with his family as well. We will keep rolling through the dead period. I don't know what in the hell we're going to talk about next week.
We'll find stuff.
We'll find something, because we just can't quit you guys. There's no doubt about it. Thanks everybody for being here. And for these guys, I am signing off on the SCB Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck.